buying a brand new boat today is, yeah, I mean, some of the Mastercrafts are 350 grand brand new, uh,
Yeah.
which, which is pretty much my first question here is going to be, um, what percentage of new boats are done through financing?
So traditional financing is going to capture about a third. But overall, so when I say traditional financing, I mean like you go to a dealership and you arrange financing, or you call a guy like me and say, "Hey, I want to finance a boat." We're going to capture about a third. In some markets more, some markets left or less. But what's interesting is that 90% of boats are financed somewhere, whether it's someone pulling cash out of an investment fund or they're sourcing some sort of financing using personal assets as their backing. Uh,
Hmm.
Roughly 90%.
That's crazy. I mean, with the prices of today's boats, I could totally understand that number, but that is a very large number. I mean, like 90% is that's a high. How do you know how many people default on those loans? Like how many people lose their boat?
It's low. It's really low.
Really?
Um, yeah, I work with a bank up here out of Maine, and I mean they probably originate 1,000 loans a year. And the last time I spoke with their vice president, he said that they only defaulted, or there were only 3 loans that defaulted in the 2024 year. In
Really?
2024 as a whole, yeah, it's
Wow.
low.
Yeah, that is extremely low. I mean, but that's only 1 year. Is there a point in time where say 5 years those numbers go up or
If you look back to 2008 2009, those numbers were much higher.
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
that's because the lending guidelines back then were much more lenient. Approval odds today, I would say, are similar to what they were back then, but banks are more stringent in terms of what they will allow. So if you
Hmm.
don't fit in the criterion that their program is trying to fit, um, if you don't fit in their program, they won't lend the money. So whereas before there were a number of different ways to get around it, uh, they would they had a stack of addendums that you work your way through. Um, you could find a way to do it back then, whereas today it's very clean cut.
Yeah, yeah, they're not just handing out, you get a boat, you get a boat, you get a boat like Oprah.
Yeah, everyone gets a boat.
Yeah, that's too funny. That's too funny. Is it harder to get a boat loan like compared to, or is it pretty much, is it similar to like a car loan? Because I mean, that's another thing. I mean, there's so many. I wouldn't be surprised if 90% of cars out there were on a car loan too.
Yeah. Um, if you're looking at car loans in comparison to a boat loan, the best way to describe it is I use the analogy of if a car loan is on one end of the spectrum and a mortgage is on the other, a boat loan is approximately 90% of the way to a mortgage. Um, it's not quite as simple as a car loan, and it's nowhere near as complex as a mortgage, but it shares a lot of the same proponents as a mortgage in terms of the length of the loan. Um, it's it's very similar but very different.
Is it a hard process? Like, is it, how hard is it to get approved for a boat loan? It's like if car loans over here and pretty much anybody with a heartbeat can get a car loan, then if we're over to the other side with the boat loan, is it pretty easy to get pre-approved, or like how
I
difficult
would
is that?
I would say there's a few different tiers, right? So if you're financing less than $50,000, that's
Okay.
going to be a pretty easy loan. Uh, Specifically on boats that are newer than 10 years old, sometimes
Mm,
20, depends on the program. And then 50 to 150,000, that steps it up a notch. And then beyond $150,000, there are some intricacies over 150,000 in terms of what the bank will require. That's when they start asking for more income. They ask for more income-based stipulations, whereas anything less than that, generally speaking, it's very very clean cut. So under 150 grand is what they call a stated income, where you state your income. They might ask for proof of what you're making, versus over 150. Sometimes they'll ask for financials.
mm. Like
Uh,
W-2s or a bank statement or something like that.
Yeah, they call them a personal financial statement.
Okay.
Basically, they just want to know what's going on, what your sort of financial portfolio looks like. But again, it depends on the bank. There's different programs. We typically try to put the customer with whatever lender is going to make the most sense.
So if it's closer to the mortgage side, like I mean, depending on the mortgage that you get, some mortgages like some of them take a month, some of them take 2 months to get closed. How long does it generally take for like this whole process to go from like?
Or well, actually, yeah, I want to ask that question, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe there's another way to ask it of like for homes you can get pre-approved or pre-qualified. So like there's a difference between approved and qualified. Is it similar to that when you're getting a boat loan?
We do a pre-approval. What we'll
Okay.
do is we'll generally speaking, you want to narrow your boat search down to one. Let's say you're looking at a boat and you say, "Hey, listen, I'm thinking about this. I just don't know if I qualify." What we'll do
Mm-hmm.
is we'll take your application and send it to the bank and say, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" And they'll either approve or deny, or they'll just issue a rate and a term, and then you have you're locked and loaded. You could go and purchase that boat.
Oh wow. So it's pretty quick. I mean, like is that like 2 day process, 3 day?
So from start to finish, let's just say you want to buy a Boston Whaler 19 Montauk, you know,
Mm-hmm.
80, $100,000 boat new. From start to finish, I could have your paperwork signed and the dealer paid in 3 days.
Well, that's good because that's I mean boats are quick. Like they move quick. It's like so it's kind of
Yeah.
like that's what I was thinking there. I was thinking, well, if it's closer to the mortgage side, I mean that takes a long time to get all the stuff done. So it's kind of like by the time you get all your documents, this, that, and the other thing, well, that boat's already sold now. So it's kind of like, well, can you get like this pre-qualified and then go shopping around and say like I'm approved for X amount, and then now all of a sudden you can start shopping around based on your budget type of thing.
Yes and no. I mean, here's what I'll tell you is approvals are specific to the boat. So let's
Mm.
say you're approved on an $80,000 or $100,000 Boston Whaler, and you say, man, I really like that Robalo they have. And it's the same price range. I would say the possibility of that approval extending to the other boat is like 99%
Okay.
in most cases. It's it's like I said, it's an interesting world. We try to simplify down. You just make it as streamlined as possible for the customer, um, and just picking one boat makes it a little bit easier for you. But don't ever let that stop you from saying, you know what, I've sort of shifted gears. I want to
Mm-hmm.
buy, I want to buy something else because a that's a real thing that happens, and that's a real thing that we deal with and can execute on.
Yeah, because that's kind of something that I mean I tell people that a lot whenever they're buying, like talking about boats. So whenever you're buying a boat, to me it's almost like I try to tell people don't get emotionally attached until you have it. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people could get emotional in the deal. So like, they pick this boat, but depending on the market and this time of the year, like, when you're buying a boat in June, they go a lot quicker than they do in December. So in June, it's kind of like a quick thing where you found this boat and then you go to try and get it financed. And then when you come back, the boat got sold to somebody else. It's kind of like, that's what I was really thinking about is I feel like that would be a pretty common scenario of, like you said, I'm looking at the Boston Whaler, but the Robalo is the same thing, or they got a different Whaler in, and it's got something else. It's got more horsepower. It's got a Seakeeper. It's got some kind of
Yeah.
amenity that makes it more appealing than the other one, and so how kind of like all flexible is that? I guess you'd say.
It's like I said before, it's approvals can be a little bit fluid. Um,
Yeah.
it's and interestingly, I actually run into that situation often in the late spring, early summer.
Oh
Someone's
yeah.
like, "We just came back from the dealership. We're thinking about it. We want to entertain our financing options." And
Mm-hmm.
the first question I always ask is, "Did you leave a deposit?" Because
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yep.
sales is a crazy place. If it can happen, it will. And I've seen crazier things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And even to your point exactly, someone's looking at a whaler. they leave, and then the dealership may take another boat in on trade between the time they left and the time they come in the next day. They're like, oh my God, that's the boat that I was looking for all along.
Yeah.
And like I said, we can switch gears. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just a more streamlined process if they have.
Hey there, sorry to take you away from the video, but real quick, did you know that on average a boat owner will spend between $1,000 and $5,000 a year just on servicing their engine? And you could actually pocket and save a lot of that money if you would just do the service yourself. It might seem like a daunting task, but I guarantee you virtually everyone can do it with our guidance and the Boaters program. This is just one skill that you could learn inside the program because we have hundreds of other videos teaching you all kinds of boating skills, as well as a weekly live stream where we have questions and answers with me, as well as a chat feature where you can send videos and pictures, ask all kinds of questions, or look for some advice or some guidance on a project that you're doing on your boat. And we've made it super easy because you can start and stop the program at any time. So you could actually join, do a few videos, learn a few skills, and then when you're not using your boat, like say you have an off season, you can stop using the program, pause your membership, and then when you need to use it again, you can just start the membership back up and have instant access to all the content. You can join the program by hitting the first link in the description, clicking join, or visiting bornagainboating.com. Now back to the video.